and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Tech 4 podcast, and we are back once again with myself and a very cool Jeffrey, Mr. Tech Raskin.
Well, it's hot. I'm trying to make it cool.
Well, what do you have there, Mr. Tech? What's this fancy vacuum-sounding gadget in your hand?
It is a fancy one. Let's see. So it's USB-C powered, so no batteries involved here. Save the environment. And I can go up to 5, and it feels so good right now. So to bring down the 100, and what are we at today? 40, 150 degree heat, something like that?
I thought it was 170.
170. That sounds about it. Inside your car, it actually is. So.
Well, in here with all these lights on, it's definitely 170 degrees.
About. But I won't do this today, but it does feel really good. So you got to get one of these. It's really nice. So.
Hey, you can send that over here. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about the epic news which has passed down from the National Association of Realtors in the past couple of weeks. We've got some changes to our standards of practice, in particular 10-5. And needless to say, freedom of speech is back in America. At least it's back for realtors. And I guess now there's a whole thing going on where maybe you're not wearing your realtor hat all the time. And you can take it off. Yeah, good job. You can take it off when you're not practicing real estate. So Standard Practice 10-5 originally, when it came out, was this whole thing basically saying you can't use hate speech, epithets, slurs. And as we all know, everybody's got a different definition of hate speech and all that stuff. So it's kind of open to interpretation. And really, that kind of restricted our freedom of speech that we have as members of the NAR, and really freedom of speech that we have as citizens of the United States. And now we've got some changes that have recently occurred to that. So tell us a little bit more about that, Jeff.
Yeah, so just to let you know, there's been a lot of changes in general,
Yes.
a ton in our industry. I don't need to tell you about that. We have maybe a different episode about we talked about the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party, right? Something
Yes.
like that. I remember you mentioned that one, but it's not that
clear
CCP.
cooperation policy.
That's what it stands for. That's right. I forgot about that. So there's been some changes at NAR Midyear, which is in D.C. about a month ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And basically in the D.C., so they always have the NAR NXT every November, and that's our annual conference where they go to all of our 1.5 million membership out there, and they say, hey, come on down to, and it always goes East Coast, West Coast, East Coast, West Coast. By the way, this year is going to be in Houston, Texas. So that's obviously the West Coast, or at least as close as you're going to get. And then next year it's going to go back to the East Coast. So anyways, if you want to join a lot of your fellow Realtors there, it will be in the second week of November in Houston. Just go to the NAR website, nar.realtor, to go ahead and look at that. And then they also have something every year, and it's called Midyear, so NAR Midyear, and that's when it's a lot less than the 15 to 18,000 people who go to the NXT conferences, but
which, by the way, still isn't even all the active realtors in the state of Arizona, which is mind-blowing.
It's just a fraction. I mean, that's out of the 1.5 million people membership. We have 15 to 18,000 in Arizona. Of course, we have 70,000. So yeah, this is a very small percentage of people from all over the country. It's still big, right? We still are the largest trade organization in the United States in terms of conferences. I think doctors they have more people coming. But anyway, so anyway, at Midyear and DC, that's when we get a little bit more political, and we go and.
Well, if you're in DC, I would hope you're getting political.
Yeah, we're definitely getting political there, and that's when our lobbyists they stay there and they fight for homeownership rights and things like that. But this year they talked about a lot of extra rules that they needed to change because all of the lawsuits that have come about. And we all know about the commission lawsuits and oh my gosh, the Sitzer, Burnett, I mean, that's a whole different subject altogether. By the way, we now have over $1 billion of lawsuits. I just wanted that. We've either lost $1 billion. So, and so it's pretty It's pretty
Makes
big
you
out
wonder
there.
where all this money is going off to.
Well, most of it goes to the lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of it goes to the lawyers because I think each homeowner in that lawsuit, I think they got anywhere between about $17 and $27 each. So, yeah.
Yeah, big returns on their investment, right?
Big, huge returns because of some of that, right, we didn't do wrong. Yeah, it's a whole different one on that. But let's talk about this. So let's talk really quick about the 17 articles of the Code of Ethics. And once again, you all need that every 3 years. And 2025 was the beginning of the cycle 7 or cycle 8. I forgot. I think it's cycle 7, and the next 3 years, cycle 8. I might have got that backwards, or I forgot which one it was. But
He
either
just
way,
told you something that absolutely nobody else knows.
No, nobody else knows. Yeah, don't even worry about it. So 2025, it started your 3 years. So 2025, 26, 27. So by December 31st of 2027, make sure that every single one of you get your Code of Ethics in. And keep in mind, Code of Ethics has nothing to do with the Arizona Department of Real Estate, right? So when you get your certificate, do not turn it in to there. You turn it in to your local association. And you return to your local association, they'll bubble it up to NAR for you. And then also, quick side note on that one, I want to also remind you that NAR new mandate is the fair housing course that you also need every 3 years, and then also goes parallel with the Code of Ethics, so 25, 26, 27. And I want to remind you on that one that our course, a little bit of a shameless plug for Check for RE, but shameless plug here, when you take our fair housing course, which by the way is fun, of course, right, Jake?
I think so.
It is. It's
Yes.
and I just want to remind you that, remember, ours kills 2 birds with 1 stone. And the first one would be the fair housing that ADRE, if you're in Arizona Department of Real Estate mandates that you take that 24 hours every 2 years. But it also makes sure that it also satisfies the NAR fair housing mandate. So you don't have to take 2 separate fair housing courses, one of them for ADRE and one of them because we combine it into one. So with that being said, let's go over the 17 articles of the Code of Ethics, more specifically Article 10. So if you don't know what it is, right, tisk on you, but you all do know, go Google it, and once again, you'll get that in your fair housing course. But Article 10 goes over the 7 protected classes from HUD, and then the 2 extra protected classes from NAR. So we have 9 total protected classes.
It's what I like to call the fair housing article.
That's exactly what it is. And remember, fair housing is for everybody. So I want to remind you, it has nothing to do with you being a Realtor member, has nothing to do with you being a licensee or a real estate professional. This is for everybody. So, but the 2 extra protected classes is specifically for NAR members. So I do want to let you know that one. So,
and do you know which 2 additional protected classes the NAR gives us?
I do. Wait, out of the 7 and then the 2?
Yeah, what are the extra 2?
Oh, sexual orientation and gender identity.
Okay, good.
Wait,
good job.
really? Yeah, I definitely know. So we have 9 protected classes, right? And then about 4 years ago, we did a standard of practice. It happens to be called 10.5. And 10.5 actually says, look, as Jake mentioned earlier on, so in just Article 10 in general, don't do anything derogatory, stupid, bad things, whatever you want to call it, for the 9 protected classes. Just don't do that. Sell to everybody, make money. It's the biggest no-brainer of no-brainers. But we passed this standard of practice, and it qualified it a little bit more, and it goes, hey, by the way, I want to remind you that you cannot take off your Realtor hat. You can see the shine there. And you
freshly
can't,
waxed this morning.
Freshly waxed and buffed. And you can't take it off and say, well, I'm not doing real estate right now. I'm on my own time, and now I can say whatever I want. So my religion prohibits me from saying I'm going to support this or I'm going to support that. And so because of that, or it doesn't have to be religion, but anything. And basically, I want to go on Facebook and say, you know who I really hate? I hate green people. They all suck. It's my personal opinion. I don't like green people. Amendment 1 of the U.S. Constitution, or Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. I have freedom of speech. I have the ability to do that. And bottom line is that you cannot do that because of NAR Article 10, more specifically, Standard of Practice 10.5. You cannot take off your Realtor hat. Well, what happened recently, once again, a month ago at the time of filming this, in May, so it'd be May, about May, that's when the convention happened in D.C. And what they said is they go, you know what, we have a lot of lawsuits from religious leaders is one of them. And there was also another guy who just said, actually it was because of religion, I believe, and just said, you know what, I don't like green people because that's what my religious beliefs say. And they said, well, but the problem is you're a Realtor member as well, and because of 10.5, you cannot say that. You cannot take off your Realtor hat. And he goes, no, religious freedom, I can do that. And that's where the lawsuit occurred. And NAR said, we don't want to have to deal with this because actually Texas, where
I was just about to bring that up.
Exactly. Texas, where the NAR convention is going to be this year, they actually brought up on the floor of their Senate, of their Congress, right, at the state level, and they said, you know what, we can't let any association, they were probably aiming at the Realtor members, but
most likely, yeah.
But we can't let any association or any union, workers, union and stuff like that, we can't let them dictate to eliminate free speech. And I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think between those religious leaders who said it's against our religious beliefs, and I think because of that happening, which, by the way, it didn't pass, actually, in Texas.
That's surprising.
Yeah, it is kind of
for
surprising.
Texas, that's really surprising.
That's really surprising. So that did get shot down. But bottom line is that after that, NAR said, we need to make a decision here. And once again, in D.C., they decided to wipe it out altogether. So I do want to let you know, 10.5, I don't know if retracted is the right word or not.
I would say added on to. I'm looking at it right now, and it is significantly longer now than it was before.
Okay. So do you actually have the verbiage?
I do have it pulled up.
If you could just read it off, that would be great.
All right. So Standard Practice 10-5, you guys may remember, was significantly shorter than this. It was basically cut and dry. You cannot say this, cannot do this, yada, yada, yada. Well, now this is changed up to state specifically realtors in their capacity as real estate professionals in association with their real estate businesses or in their real estate related activities shall not harass any person or persons based on any of the protected classes, which are race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity.
Right.
Additionally, it goes on to say, as used in this code of ethics, harassment is unwelcome behavior directed at an individual or group based on one or more of the above protected characteristics where the purpose or effect of this behavior is to create a hostile, abusive, or intimidating environment which adversely affects their ability to access equal professional services or employment opportunity. That was a mouthful.
That is a mouthful, right? It's definitely got a lot larger, bigger than it was before.
Well, just like the clear cooperation policy, MLS Rule 8.0, it was very cut and dry, but as we see with the vast majority of rules as they go along, it's kind of like we say, this is unrelated in the world of photography. Rules are there to be broken. And with the real estate world, they're not there to be broken, but they are there to be challenged and to be changed as time goes on. And that's one thing that you see pretty consistently with the NAR is they come out with one very cut and dry rule, and then over time that gets expanded on, changed up, clarified, and all that stuff. As we've come to find out with the NAR over the last few years, they prefer to go through fire to figure out which rules are good and which ones are not, rather than trying to communicate with their members up front and figure out what's a good idea.
You know what? That is a great statement because it really is the truth, right? They put out these rules, and then only and a lot of the rules are not proactive, right? They're reactive, and a great one. Just a quick side note is Article 12, Standard of Practice 12.1 that says don't say the word free. right? And if you think about it, like, why can't I say the word free? I'm going to represent you as a buyer, and my services are free to you because I'm going to be paid by the listing agent. Well, no, 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 no. We all know that's what got us into a $1 billion lawsuit. And so, anyway, so... By the way, that is a real one, right? Senator Practice 12.1, don't say the word free. But yes, they do. They come out with this definitive, black and white statements. And sometimes they need to kind of...
What's incredible about that is, as black and white as it is, there's still so much that gets left open to interpretation.
There is.
Which unfortunately results in lawsuits, but
like $1 billion lawsuit, right.
Just like it's the exact same thing with our purchase contract in Arizona. It used to be one page back in the day, and we're now up to what, 11, 12 pages?
10.
11 if you include the checklist at the very top.
True.
Yeah, but each and every line on that contract is another lawsuit that occurred at one point or another.
Oh, they keep on adding it. And
yes.
By the way, every time you see another addendum, I just want to let you know, it's because of a lawsuit. So I just want to let you know, market or an advisory, right? The market condition advisory, because back in 2008, people are suing because of the roller coaster, the short sell addendum, which you've never seen in your lifetime and your real estate career. I definitely did. People were getting sued over that. So I just want to let you know, all of these advisories or addendums all come across because of lawsuits that have happened. And by the way, another quick fun fact, if you think our contract is bad, go over to California. You can't even imagine theirs, and thank God we're not in there. By the way, I love you Californians if you're watching, but yes, so...
Well, didn't they just re-release like 64, 69 documents or something like that as a part of their whole thing?
Yeah.
So here's the big question of the day that I think we really, truly need to address, because this has some room left open to interpretation, right? The thing about being a real estate agent is that you're never truly off the clock. The same thing as being a realtor. I mean, it's the same capacity. You're never truly off the clock. As long as you've got a phone on you, there's always somebody that's going to be trying to get a hold of you.
Well, because people expect immediate attention, because that's the society we live in, right? We're in a very...
Oh, but God forbid they give you that same attention when you need their help, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, it's either that or people trying to sell you seller leads for $75 a pop. I swear I get those like every other day.
So
here's the question, right? Given the fact that we're technically speaking always on the clock, how do we define when we're wearing our realtor hat and when we're not wearing our realtor hat? Because that's another gray area there. I mean, sure, we can be out having coffee with one of our friends, and then all of a sudden they ask us that daunting question, how's the market doing? Then all of a sudden you go from friend mode back into, oh, I'm a realtor again, and that hat is right back on. Well, as soon as we stop talking about the market, do I take my hat back off, or I don't know. What do you think that looks like?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, because it's the same thing as shopping at Fry's or Safeway or whatever supermarket, and you're in line and somebody eventually they see the Realtor pin, right? They see that I'm wearing whatever, some sort of paraphernalia, my hat, my Realtor hat, although this is my Tech Ferrari hat, and basically they go, by the way, how is the market? And I'm just shopping, and I'm like, oh, well, yeah, and boom, do I go into real estate mode? And then suddenly, and they go, well, you know what? It's funny that I'm asking this question, because I just heard you a second ago talk about green people. I saw you shopping, and I saw that you hate green people, which is ridiculous. Of course, I would never say that, but the point is that, yeah, where do you, take off your realtor hat? Same thing of what you just said, which is a great point, right? I'm out. It's Friday, and basically we're out drinking with friends, and everybody's like, we're talking about green people, and we're talking about things that might not cut the mustard when it comes to the 9 protected classes, right? And making jokes and whatever, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, well, how's the market? And so now are you suddenly like, oh, let me switch hats, and okay, I got this on now, and here we go. So let's talk about it. And that can get a little bit hairy.
And then does that hat stay on for the rest of the time that you're with them, or does it come back off?
That's a really good question. Really good point. Yeah.
I don't know. Like I see what SOP 10-5 says. In our capacity in as real estate professionals in association with our real estate business or real estate related activities. So technically speaking, the way that I'm reading this is if we're out with our friends, for example, out getting some drinks or whatever we're doing, hanging out at Margaritaville, and all of a sudden we're talking about yellow people, and then all of a sudden somebody asks us what's going on with the market or what would our house sell for. I interpret that as being, hey, when you're active on duty, yes, you're wearing your hat full time,
Right.
But if you're out on a social call, I would say that, yeah, you can toss your realtor hat on momentarily, but then I think that it can come back off after that point. You're going right back into friend mode once again, especially if you never bring that back up. However, specifically in this case, if you're talking about people of yellow skin color or something like that, you're talking about the Simpsons, you may not want to go back into having that conversation again after you've practiced some sort of real estate thing. Because to the general public, well, actually, that even brings up a whole other topic for interpretation, is because the general public, they know us for what we brand ourselves as, which is a realtor. And in the general public's eyes, do we ever even take that realtor hat off?
So here, my general statement, and by the way, I was going to save this to the very end, but I'm going to say it now. In general, right, this is my thought process, is if you go into some sort of social media platform, whether it be Facebook or Insta or whatever the case, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever the case may be, I'm going to recommend you don't talk about the 9 protected classes.
Or politics.
Right?
You will lose half of your business doing either of those.
It's just gone. And that's why you'll never know our political belief, nor should you know our political belief, because I can tell you half of you would love us and half of you would not ever come to one of our classes again and listen to this podcast again. So that should never, ever be an issue. So just a general statement, stay away from that stuff. If you want to have a conversation, with your friends and but that's the thing. You never do know, because there's, people out there. I know I've been friends, and not that I say anything about, that's ridiculous, but, about other things, about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and controversial things, right?
Yeah.
And I talk about it, and they get mad. Heck, politics is the biggest thing of all, right?
Yeah. Because politics, they've basically made themselves our gods over the last couple of years.
And so what happens is that even though they're not a protected class, or any social political ideology is not a protected class, but you get into it and you split ways. So don't talk about that stuff in general, because that's what happened to these couple of realtors that I can think of off the top of my head. One of them just went on to Facebook and said, I hate green people because of my religion. And another one was actually a pastor of a church, and he said to his congregation why he's wearing his realtor pin. By the way, because of religion, I don't like green people, and that's what got him in trouble. So stay away from that. Just stay away from that in general.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So in closing, I think one of my final thoughts that I want to share here is that as far as deciding whether or not you're active in real estate or inactive, like in the sense that you're either wearing the hat or not wearing the hat, I think what we're going to see is further clarification of this rule over the course of time. Whether or not that's going to happen in the Code of Ethics, I don't know. I think really what that's going to boil down to, call me crazy, but I think that's going to boil down to a state level type of thing. I think the Department of Real Estate in each individual state is going to have to decide what it looks like for somebody to be on the clock versus on the clock. Sure, there's going to, on the clock versus off the clock. Sure, there's going to be stuff that happens within the NAR that's going to have to happen to further clarify what this looks like. Where is the line drawn in the sand? Because right now it's still not very clear, given the fact that we're always reachable, technically always wearing that hat still. We're going to have to further clarify and decide what that looks like, but just like everything else, that's going to have to happen over the course of time, and unfortunately, over the course of people getting butt hurt and lawsuits happening. That's the only way this is going to work.
So the only thing that I do want to clarify about that, are you talking about the individual Department of Real Estate, or are you talking about the state associations?
Both, actually.
Well, remember, just want to remind you of this one, right? The Department of Real Estate has nothing to do with NAR.
Right.
So in other words, if they want to clarify something at the state level in terms of the actual Department of Real Estate of each state, right? That would only apply to the licensees, which would be all of us, right? If you're a Realtor member. But remember, right, that if you're an NAR member, you would still have to abide by NAR rules. So
no, I totally get what you're saying, but I'm thinking it's got to boil down to a state-by-state type of case, because you look at California, they've got a million different rules within their state to identify
and they have extra
stuff.
protected classes.
Exactly, yes. So I'm not saying that it's impossible, but just knowing how things have gone in the past, the individual states typically like to define this stuff for themselves. But again, we'll see what winds up happening, and I'm sure there will be something to further clarify this in the Code of Ethics as well. But
probably so. I guess my closing statement would be: sell to everybody, make money. It's going to be number one. And then seriously, I don't know why you wouldn't want to sell to somebody and not make money. It doesn't make sense to me. But then the other thing is, just remember, right? You either lose your audience or you don't lose your audience. So in other words, just be kind out there, right? Be a good person and don't talk about green people or anybody else. And, even on your private time, be aware of what you're saying. So
do unto others as you want them to do unto you.
Exactly. The golden rule and the platinum rule, I think there's something like that where, right. But
that's really what this boils down to.
Right.
So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Tech 4 podcast, and we'll see you in another episode very soon.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.